Welcome to Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news, trends, and hottest topics that focus on advances in cybersecurity and cyber industry economics. Our expert yet down-to-earth hosts make cybersecurity straightforward. They ask the tough questions and make this challenging topic something that everyone can understand. Our candid approach lets guests open up on topics we would all like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at newcyberfrontier.com. That's www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join today's host as he introduces the topic for today's new Cyber Frontier.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. On today we have a great treat. Jerry Chappee, who is, there's quite a few things here, but for the Army was the Joint Cybersecurity Center US and European Command, and did a lot of work with NATO. So we're going to talk about that. Currently with ENSCO, though, and is a cyber operations strategist, but also a lead at Air Force Satellite Control Networks. Welcome today, Jerry. Thanks for joining.
Great, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah. So was all that semi-accurate?
Semi-accurate, yes. I was the team chief for the Joint Cybersecurity Center for EUCOM, and had a lot of interfaces with all the NATO teams. Yes, so thank you very much.
Yeah, a lot of things there. But Jerry, kind of give us your background. How did you? I mean, you didn't start out being over there working in the Eastern Europe, we'll just say. There was a path before that. What led you to how you got where you were at and how your career's progressed?
Over the years, a lot of right place at the right time and a bit of dumb luck. And
the accidental thing, right?
sometimes the accidental thing comes in handy, but also you make a lot of your own luck of studying when people are going out drinking instead to crack a book and open it up and actually do some learning. Over the last 2 decades or so, I've been doing combination of wide area networks, local area networks, system administrator, all the IT side, and working my way up through that process on the civilian side and as an Army reservist. I decided also that in order to be able to understand the IT and be able to help an organization move forward, be it the Army or a civilian organization, it has to implement or impact the bottom line. So then I went through and picked up an MBA. So having an MBA along with a CCIE and a CISSP and multiple other different certifications has really helped move my career forward and has allowed me to go into multiple different locations that I never thought were possible or even existed. A few years ago, I was board selected to be the only Army reservist to be a plank holder and help stand up the Cyber National Mission Force, which is the operational arm for U.S. Cyber Command. So I did that for a couple of years as the Deputy J3. That helped a great deal in being able to create the defensive teams that Cyber Command currently has scattered around the world.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I ended up in War College, and from that, they deployed me over to EUCOM to help run the Joint Cyber Center in lieu of an NAC person that had not arrived in yet. So I did that for a year before I returned back here to ENSCO to continue helping to run the Air Force Satellite Control Networks.
Yeah. So J3, I hear there's J1 through J6, right? Tell us where J3 fits in and how that relates to some of the others in case people aren't familiar with that.
Oh, good question. The J3 is actually the operations, is day in and day out operations. J1 is the HR department on talent management, things of that nature. The 2 shop is the intel shop. Anything having to do with cyber intel, ground intel, all that intel side, SIGINT, HUMINT, all that good stuff. And then the 3 is the actual operations. So it takes all the information, all the people and everything, and it determines where they're going to go and how they're going to get there.
Yeah, and the J means joint across all 4 branches.
Yes, correct.
5 branches now.
Yep. So 5 branches, 6 branches, it varies on on who it is that you talk to. But spending a lot of time at Cyber Command, and as you see with the coronavirus discussions daily from the White House, the Coast Guard is a very viable and extremely helpful branch of the service that often gets overlooked.
That's
But
true. And now we have the Space Command as
they're on
well.
mission every day.
Yeah,
Hmm.
true. Okay. Awesome. So let's take a break here from our sponsor. We'll be right back, and we want to talk some more about some of these different agencies and what they mean for people like me that are not in this day in and day out. Be right back.
Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. On today with Jerry Chappee, who is several organizational titles he's had in the military, several cybersecurity certifications. We won't even go through them all. You just got done listening to that at the beginning of the show here. But some unique experience that we want to talk about and bring some light onto, some of these interesting operations that are a little bit cloak and dagger sometimes. But first of all, I understand that you had a lot of work with NATO and the Joint Cybersecurity European Command, and we've talked before, and you gave me some details about the what has happened there since the walls come down. What's new? What's the same? And what are the challenges even faced today after having the the Russian or the Soviet Union over Eastern Europe, and things that we've seen in the last couple of years with Ukraine and stuff. But tell us what your experience is there.
All in all, it's very, very interesting, and it's very eye-opening the first time you actually have a chance to go into some of the other countries. Spending time walking the ground in Warsaw and a number of the other locations, is interesting. The how much a lot of all the former Soviet bloc countries, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, all those good ones, want to become more and more and more American. And you can see this day in and day out just by walking the streets in Warsaw or in Teninia. You look into bookstores, and in Warsaw, you look through the window, and all the books inside the bookstores are all in English. Where in Germany, you don't see that. Everything is in German. In France, they're all in French. In the former Soviet bloc countries, all the bookstores are in English. Everybody speaks English and wants to know about America. And so those details are very interesting. I had the opportunity to be the representative and help stand up the cyber command for the country of Estonia.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at a small country like that, the population isn't much bigger than Denver, a little over a million and a half people. But their idea, and they know for a fact that they are going to be a speed bump because they've already been hacked and attacked by the Russians back in 2008, 2007, 2008 timeframe. It was one of the very first times that cyber was actually fully used in a combat environment. And it shows how far ahead the Russians are in regards to implementing cyber as part of a battlefield strategy. So spending some time in Estonia and Lithuania and things of that nature, as they stand up their cyber command, they're trying to replicate or emulate exactly how we're doing it over here. Hopefully they're not also going through and using the same mistakes that we had, because we were trying to create it on the fly, trying to get it right the first time, and they have learned from our mistakes. Mm-hmm. They've been able to stand up their cyber commands a lot faster and a lot more effective than what we have. Also, when you look across the entire theater over there, a lot of the things haven't changed. A lot of the SCADA systems on how water and power and natural gas and stuff are being monitored and managed and deployed across the entire region is all still controlled by the Russians. The SCADA systems are still all Russian, and that's in all of those countries over there. As you look down, like into Ukraine or Montenegro and Macedonia, things of that nature, you have the same problems down there also. We also run into a physical problem when we go to look at potential ground battle and stuff in that region. The rail systems are different from the former Western Europe to Eastern Europe. So, and back in the day, back in the Cold War time frame, we had rail cars where we put our tanks and our other Humvees and all the other armament and stuff on, and would drive that over towards the Fulda Gap, take it off, and wait for the Russians to come in. Well, now we would be moving those convoys farther into Poland and the places like that. The problem is those rail cars don't exist, and the rail lines are different once we cross that threshold into Poland. So there's all sorts of challenges that we're going to be running into in that environment.
Interesting.
But on the cyber side, a lot of the countries like Estonia is far more cyber savvy than we are over here. They are far ahead of us when it comes to the digital age than what we have here. Everybody there is fully up to speed on it and how to do digital signatures and everything of that nature, where we aren't to that level here yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously they're being able to purchase everything through their phone when they walk up to a like say soda dispenser vending machines. They can use their phones and everything for being able to order all those things. So it's a lot different over there than what it is here.
Yeah, I know Estonia was one of those countries that has some kind of a public blockchain type based record system. I know I looked into it a little bit. It's not what we would call blockchain from a cryptocurrency standpoint, but more of a hash chaining proof record engine.
Yes. And also one of the other big things that's changed over there just over the last 2 years is the GDPR regulations on people that are online to be able to remove themselves, so people can't maintain their information for very long.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of those regulations that we are adopting over here slowly, just because we have so many people that transit or work for companies on both sides of the pond.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot more difficult to manage, and a lot of the companies over here haven't realized that they have to also subscribe to those regulations.
Interesting. One thing I heard in your kind of, we'll say, underlying tone is, and I just wanted to question about this.
Mm-hmm.
When you're over there, it seemed like I heard everything that you said was about the Russians being the biggest threat. Is it a real that they feel that that's their protagonist dynamic in their whole country, in that whole region, is them against Russia? Is that what I heard? Is that underlying tone accurate?
For the most part, yes. You look at like the Baltic countries, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia, up in that region. Their expectation is to be a groundhog. They have groundhog pictures up at the bus stops on sides of buildings. Their mentality is to be a groundhog, and that understanding is that they know for sure that they're going to get eaten up by the bear, but they want to cause as much pain to that bear as possible to slow him down before, or to allow the Americans and the Brits and the Canadians to show up to help with the fight, and because they've already experienced this in the past.
Yeah, I could imagine that in past generations that fear was passed down. Is it legitimate still?
It varies on who you ask and how far into the recent past you look. If you look into like the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula down in the Ukraine, a lot of countries believe, especially like in Estonia and the Baltics, that it can very, very easily happen up there. Because one of the big questions that they continue to have is that, pick one of the three small Baltics. They believe that if they call an Article 5 to NATO, which is the Three Musketeers motto, is that an attack on one is an attack on all for NATO. Does Spain and Portugal view the loss of Lithuania the same as the people in Lithuania do? Or are they actually going to come to the fight? So there's a lot of concerns about that, and the people talking with the other colonels in Lithuania and Estonia and stuff, they are very, very concerned about it, and that's why they're putting so much daily FaceTime with the Americans. We have the National Guard actually has rotations over to each of those countries
Mm-hmm.
in what's called a country partnership, state country partnership. So each one of the states over here has a country over there that they directly support. Colorado here happens to directly support Slovenia. So when I was in Slovenia, I was meeting with Colorado National Guard guys. There's some that are actually permanently stationed over there, and then there's quite a few others that do rotations back and forth.
Interesting.
Excuse me. So
Interesting.
what they keep the smaller countries over there continue to do is to try and build as much possible rapport with the Americans to make sure that if the Russians do decide to roll in and cover that 20 miles, that 40 miles, that 100 miles, and all of a sudden take over their whole country, that the Americans will be there because they have skin in the game because they actually have people there on the ground all the time.
Yeah. Let's take a break. Hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back in a minute. Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. On today, talking to Jerry Chappee, and we were having an interesting history lesson and almost current affairs together. And I've seen, so many. I've always been interested in the World War II movies and show everything going on over there. And the fear is the next frontier being cyber is the next battleground. And you said that was a reality for some of those countries, including the Ukraine, Estonia.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about what they're seeing that makes that a reality almost in their mind when they see cyber attacks.
Currently, they do see a considerable amount of cyber attacks day in and day out, and they know for a fact that it's coming from right down the road on across the border, and what they're trying to figure out is how best to not only build up their defenses, but how much can they attack back? How much can they do what we call responsive actions? What is responsive action to be able to push them out of the country network? The
Mm-hmm.
problem they also run into is the same problem that we run into here. Is that as they stood up their cyber commands are for the governments. As the cyber commands for these smaller countries, they are trying to figure out how to push or allow their military personnel into the civilian sector, because just like here, all the power plants, the cable TV networks, all of these, everything besides what the actual government owns is all civilian owned, and the civilian owned sector does not allow the military or the government to just come in willy nilly and say, "Here, come fix my stuff." It just doesn't work that way. It takes a long time to learn the network and learn what to exactly do. What they're trying to figure out is how to get that military sector from their cyber commands in and provide the defensive might within the network to be able to push them out of their enterprise.
Hmm.
And we run into the same problem here. If we get infiltrated by, pick a country right now because it's happening continuous, just like at the Department of Health and Human Services, they're currently under cyber attack. Does the military, does DoD have the right to come in and do anything? Not until we're invited. When I worked for no such agency with Cyber Command, the only way to go onto a civilian network is to be invited, and even then, you can only go there and you look over the person's shoulder. because the way the government works and the way the acts of war work, if a person in, say, a green suit, an army person or a blue suit or an Air Force person actually sits down on the keyboard and happens to hit a certain set uh, keystrokes and actually launches a small attack to be able to push somebody out, technically, where is that gray line of the act of war fall into place? That's one of the big questions that they continually have, and everybody continues to struggle with it. The same with in space, in cyber and in space, the concept of what is a crossing the red line to be an act of war. Where is that line drawn? Is it the cost of money, or is it the cost of lives? Is it the cost of information? Obviously, the Chinese have been taking information from us for decades. Look at the OPM hack. 21 million records up and pulled out and went back to China. That's a heck of a lot of information of cleared individuals, those people that have a security clearance. So, at what point are things like that going to be considered an act of war? That's something that's still out for debate with both Cyber Command and the civilian leadership.
Yeah, there's where is the line in the internet, the cyber world? Is there one?
It, precisely. And with a lot of these small countries, they believe that they're seeing it day in and day out, and that's why they continue to emphasize and strengthen their state and country partnership. And each of the National Guards has a cyber protection team, and those are the number one people that they keep bringing over to all these countries to help improve their cybersecurity posture as a country.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Definitely, some like a history lesson. I feel like I'm listening to the documentary on the. But you're also involved with some things local here in the United States. Still, satellite control network, and
Yes.
there's something happening. You had said just a couple weeks ago, kind of officially, but there's a change where we've had the sixth, not the fifth service added. I forgot the Coast Guard until you reminded me that they are valid. But that's changed just recently. Tell us about what you're seeing there and the direction.
As this both Space Force and Space Command stand up, there's a lot of areas that they are going to be going through growing pains. Being an underground part of as Cyber Command stood up, I've been able to see where their growing pains are gonna be impactful, such as like as the Space J6 starts to stand up. How is the process of being able to take over the control of all of the ground satellite locations as they pull that in from the Air Force and they pull in a lot of this other stuff from the Army? Are those people that are in the Army and currently in the Air Force then just going to be part and developed into the Space Command, into the Space Force? There's a lot of questions out there right now, but we've had the same discussion with the cyber forces. As Cyber Command has stood up and as the cyber forces get more and more embedded with organizations down to the brigade and battalion levels, depending on what service you're in,
Mm-hmm.
they fall under some of the documents show that they fall directly under the command of General Nakasone, the commander of U.S. Cyber Command, and it's supposed to take directions from him through our Army Cyber, through Air Force Cyber, or Mar Force Cyber for the Marines, and be able to go through and execute things accordingly. Well, there's lots and lots of difficulties with that. The Space Command is going to have the same growing pains of being able to get the right people into the right locations with the right top cover to be able to do those executions. The other problem we're going to run into is how to divide up the pots of money, because we do have limited pots of money within the DoD, and what percentage of Space Command for day in and day out maintenance and systems upgrades, how are they going to go about managing that? Or are they going to leave that delegated down to each of the services? So talking with the actual J6, the CIO for the Space Command, he's not really sure yet. He's still working through those processes to determine which service has it locked in and nice and tight, and which other service could he pull into his organization to be able to take that over.
Yeah.
And
As
that's across all of them.
a taxpayer, I'm also concerned about, how many times are they going to have the same thing in two different services, and that we have to pay twice for it.
Exactly.
The redundancy is something that every time you hear, like, the Navy's got planes, the Air Force has got planes, the Army's got planes. Are we just going to triple our expenditures?
Right. And why does the Army have more boats than the Navy does?
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
So,
I think the Navy has more planes than the Air Force too, right?
something like that, I believe so. But each one of them has their own specific role. A lot of the items that the Air Force is currently doing and trying to decommission the different airframes isn't because the airframe isn't good anymore. It's one of the big problem that they run into is that the cost of maintenance to keep the thing in the air is not cost beneficial anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when the new process and the new procurement process comes out to be able to develop a new airframe that takes less maintenance to keep the thing airworthy. Such as like one of the big ones is the A-10. It's been on and off the chopping block for at least 2 decades. It was on the chopping block right before the first Gulf War,
Mm-hmm.
and went out and proved itself, and everyone was, nope, we have to keep this. But when you look at dollars and cents, is it beneficial? Is it cost effective to keep it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you happen to be one of the Army guys on the ground, listening to it come over and take out the adversaries that have been shooting at you, especially in the tanks on the other side of you, yeah, it's very, very beneficial to keep it in and very cost effective. But when you're looking at it from a bean counter standpoint and as a taxpayer, is it actually worth it?
Yeah.
And as the new Space Command stands up and takes over the management of the space infrastructure, they'll be looking at the same thing of what areas are cost effective to keep and which ones are redundant and can we cut back on.
Interesting. So it sounds like I get kind of dizzy with the political aspect of things. I want to know, what are they doing for mission wise for the people, for the country, for even our standing in the world, and any or a big one is here, our local area. Are we going to have a lot of those resources done here? How's it going to impact the economy? Any insight on any of those type of things?
Right now, it sure looks like the full Space Command and everything is going to be here. They're currently building out a number of areas on Peterson to be able to house it. Whether or not that's going to be its permanent location is anybody's guess at this time. But it goes back to what we were just talking about. Is it cost effective to be able to up and move that once they've spent multi-millions of dollars to be able to create it at where it's at?
Yeah.
The problem that you run into, though, is that how many 4-star generals can you put on the same base without them fighting? Because you never want to be in the middle of a
once again, that's the political and the administrative side, which most of us in the general public are like that could just go away as long as the mission gets met.
Right. And myself, I'm just a lowly colonel, and that's way above my pay grade.
Yeah,
I'll let them duke it out.
Yeah, well, we're reaching the end of our time here, though. But I wanted to give you the opportunity. I know you work for ENSCO, and your company or what you do is engaged with needs for our listeners to hear from, or if you want to do a shout out for anything, services you offer, or customers that you want to reach out to you can go ahead and do so now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. At ENSCO, we do a lot of the assessments, all the cyber assessments. Right now, currently, we're mostly focused on the Department of Defense, but we also have an entire wing that does it for the civilian sector, where we can come in and do full cybersecurity assessments. We can also do red teams on the facilities to actually determine whether or not the current security controls and practices that the companies have in place are beneficial or are effective.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big things. It's one thing to spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on security, on physical security and on cybersecurity, but how do you know they're actually working? So we're able to come in and actually validate for companies those tests. and make sure that they are actually getting what they're paying for.
All right. How would somebody
Makes a big difference.
How would somebody reach out or get a hold of you?
We can actually be reached on insco.com. Has our contacts, and also the best person to reach out to would be Stephen Trainer at Insco, and his email is just trainer.steven there at Insco, and it's, I believe it's on the current website that we have under cybersecurity. So
All right.
that would work out real well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining today. It was definitely interesting to hear perspective from things that you've seen that many of us have not. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to New Cyber Frontier. Remember to follow or like our post and circulate each new show to your networks. We keep you informed, bring you the latest news, explore new trends, and find the hottest topics. With New Cyber Frontier, you don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert. Just get plugged in. We encourage you to get involved. Tell us what topics interest you and join our mailing lists. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. That's newcyberfrontier.com. Check out our previous interviews and please let us know if there are any topics that you would like to hear discussed. See you next time on New Cyber Frontier.